Secrets from a Coach. Thrive and maximise your potential in the evolving workplace. Your weekly podcast with Debbie Green of Wishfish and Laura Thompson-Staveley of Phenomenal Training.
Law, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm feeling pretty good this week, actually. Lots of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Interesting things to sniff around in. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, actually. Closer to home. I think you're travelling this week, aren't you, Law? Quite a lot. So I'm closer to home, which is always nice. So I've, taken the time to just consider what's important and how to get my head back in the game and all of that lovely stuff, and not get dragged along into the flurry of going, I don't know what I'm doing. I've dropped the ball. So yeah, so it's one of those things. It's work in progress, right?
Absolutely. And linking on to that, Debs, I did have one of the moments that we're going to talk about on this episode, where there I was, Debs, right? I'd done all of my practice and my preparation. I was about to do a virtual session for, I knew at least 100 people were going to turn up, so it was going to be a big one today.
Yeah.
And just as I was about to press live, my big motivational poster that has been carefully framed in glass just fell down, knocked everything over on the table just before I clicked live. And I thought, really? Do you know what? The moment that you think you're all that, something happens that kind of sets you back. And had I let that imp kick in, Debs, oh my gosh, that imposter syndrome could have kicked in. Who am I to think that I can run things like that? Does anyone realise that behind the scenes I'm just basically making it up as I go along, with water spilling over air in the background? And based on some of the feedback we had on the session that we were running, I don't think I'm alone, am I? So from your perspective as a coach, how hot still is this topic of imposter syndrome?
Oh, Law, it is still a really hot topic. And when you think that, over 70% of people will feel it, or, think they have imposter syndrome in inverted commas in their career, it is huge. And I think, hybrid working has sort of just exploded that a little bit more, to think, well, I'm not being seen. Will anybody see me? I'm not in the office. How do I get seen? All of that stuff that goes on in our own minds can create that little imp that then plays on how we're feeling, what we think about ourselves, and the impact that it has on our ability to still deliver. So it is huge. And it comes up in some form of another, like you were saying. I was coaching somebody last week who's super good at what they do, absolutely amazing. And they just were about to say, I don't know if I'm confident enough. I think I've got imposter syndrome. And it was like, and you could see them go, no, I haven't, have I? I went, no, you haven't. But it's like that. But we like to label stuff, I think. And I think that's where that label that was first done back in the 70s, right? Or I think it was the 70s or 80s when they were doing some research. I can't remember the exact dates, but, that has stuck. And yet it was only done as a research title, but we've hooked onto it because it sounds really, I don't know what it sounds like to people, but it sounds like I've got something wrong with me. And
it's clickbait, Debs. It is clickbait.
Yeah.
People see it and go, ooh, maybe I shouldn't be so arrogant to think that, I'm not good. Maybe I've got that as well. And then you click on it and then boom, there you go. You're reading stuff that kind of speaks to all of us inside. Have you ever secretly worried you're not good enough? Yes, because you're not a psychopath.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you ever query whether, there are some things that you could still be learning even though you've got lots of experience? Yes, because you're conscientious and you want to do a good job. So I think, Debs, I get very kind of, riled up about this because it's like the beauty industry sells on that, how to have a great life is to, look at your weaknesses all the time and try and make yourself feel better if you just buy this product. And I think a little bit like imposter syndrome has been used to convince a lot of people that they've got loads of problems and they haven't, they're not skilled and they're not, deserving of what they're then doing. And actually they're, it's a made up term.
Yeah,
and all it does is kind of suppress you.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's quite sad when you start to work with people, especially on a one-to-one basis, where this negative self-talk has come into their natural way of being and the dialogue they're using, and if they've heard that message time and time and time again, and then it gets reinforced because then we start to believe our thoughts, which then impact on how we feel, which then we behave in that way, and then it's the work that we then do with people is to unlearn that behavior. None of us are born that way, right? And we know that, Law. None of us are born that way. But what we listen to, our experiences, that you said, that click through to go, oh, that must be me. Oh, yeah, it's me. And so therefore we're living in, like we talked about before, we're not being Tiggers, we're being Eeyores, because we can't see past that. And part of the work that we do is always to like hold the mirror up to some extent, or flip somebody's thinking to go, yeah, but are you, is that really true about you? Because we all have amazing qualities and strengths, and yet we don't focus on that. Where, I think Lynn's, our colleague, always says, we're all fallible human beings, right? But it doesn't mean we don't need to know what we're good at, so that, we're moving away from that imposter, into empower ourselves to be able to deliver, knowing that we have the strengths. But as you said, knowing that we're still learning, we're all work in progress. None of us are perfect. And and that's what's really important to remember.
And here's the thing, Debs, right? What is that am skilled, not skilled point anyway? It's a sliding scale. I mean, who's to say I have got the skills and capabilities to do this or I haven't? It's not a black or white issue. It's a grey scale. So even that kind of sense of, am I capable of doing this? There's no test that will say yes or no. And what always stuck in my mind that is, even on a very basic consciousness level, there's no someone is unconscious or conscious. That's why you need a human there in an operation to ensure that you're an anaesthetist, to ensure that all your vital signs are still working, because there's no click on or off, which is why, of course, patients in a coma or a vegetative state is such a controversial topic, because how do you know where that is? So even on a very deep conscious level, there's no on or off.
No.
There's and on a skill level, there's no have it or not have it. It's all a sliding scale. And I think sometimes people look for this yes or no simple way of looking at things, where actually it's a sliding scale, and just viewing skill as a spectrum rather than a absolute yes or no can mean that we're a bit less harsh on ourselves, a bit less judge and jury on whether we think we're capable or not, and much less fearful of other people judging us as being capable or not, because it's not as simple as that. It's not binary, it's a sliding scale.
Yeah. And oh my God, Laura, that's so invaluable. I wish I knew that earlier when I did my coaching session this afternoon with somebody, because we were talking about who's the expert in the room. So this person has a very unique job in the world that they work in. There is only one of them in their company, which is this individual that does the work that they do. And it was fascinating to hear how they describe themselves. So, and I asked the question of them, so tell me, what is the point of you being in the role that you're in? And they just went, because I can make a difference. I can earn the company money. And what's the point of that? Well, then people will want to come with us. And what's the point of that? We engage our audience more. And what's the point of that? We become global and nationally recognized. What's the point? So what's the point of that question came out. And I think we went down probably about 10 layers, as we called it. And then I said, okay, and what else? And I think they, whilst we were talking, they'd exhausted all of that. And I said, so tell me, who is the expert in the room? And who sits around that table as the expert? And they went, oh, maybe it's me. And I went, what? I went, what was that? I just missed that. I didn't quite hear you say that. Maybe it's me. Not maybe, it is. But they're learning. And it was just interesting that they thought they maybe didn't deserve to be around that table of quite senior people that they're advising as the job they're doing. And I said, well, who's to say you're not? So it's that. I think that's where we're privileged, right, Laura, in the roles that we do, facilitating workshops and one-to-one coaching. We can catch those imps jumping around in people's brains, and we can flip it into a go, really? It's like I always call it like we can play the devil's advocate to some extent.
But Debs, we get to peer behind the scenes. We see real people's workings out behind the scenes. And I think the more you get to work with incredibly proficient, professional, seemingly Teflon mindset people behind the scenes, the more you then realise it's a sign of being human. Everyone at some point, if you care about what you're doing, it's a sign of care, and it's a sign of wanting to have high standards, that you are concerned about maintaining those standards.
Absolutely.
So I would far rather work with someone that said, oh, every now and then I sometimes worry that I'm not good enough. Brilliant. Come and join our team.
Yeah.
I'd far rather work with someone that was consciously concerned about doing well than someone saying, oh, yeah, nah, sure, it's all right. I don't think about it, what?
Yeah.
I would far rather be operated on,
Yeah.
work alongside someone who was concerned about their competence. So I encourage people to wear that imp like a badge of honour. If you are caring and interested enough and passionate enough about what you do to worry about not being good enough for it, actually, if you flip that, that's a sign of passion and caring about it. And then so rather than going inwards, you can then just go kind of outwards and then think a bit like that sliding scale. What might that mean in terms of enabling me to feel like I'm stepping forward?
Yes.
And the other thing I think as well, just Debs, when you were talking about the person you were coaching, is even just giving a topic your undivided attention means already you will have a more sophisticated vantage point than someone that hasn't given them undivided attention, because there is so much information and knowledge out there. Even just giving it your attention means you probably know a little bit more than the other people around the table who haven't given it their attention, because there's too much stuff to learn. At some point you have to sacrifice knowing one thing over another, and that might be your thing.
Yeah, and that I suppose links into, if you have a team, that's why you have a team of people, right? So if you're a leader or a manager or team leader of a team, you're not, now I believe that you're not expected to know everything. You are expected to lead and manage that team well to get the best out of them, but you don't need to be the expert in that moment on everything. And therefore your role as that manager is to get the best out of those people. So catching them doing things right, giving them some amazing feedback when you see them do that. And again, we're sort of just about to run a workshop this week actually around giving great feedback. And it's always that bit that says, okay, well, how do I give great feedback? Well, you just look, and if you notice and you care enough to notice, then share that with somebody, because we have to help people sometimes embrace their own strengths. Because if they are on that roller coaster ride of, I'm not good enough, as you said, who am I to do this? I'm not the expert in that moment. And it's just in that moment, it's not expert forever on everything. It's that ability to just remind them of what they do bring and remind them of their talents, what achievements have they done, and to celebrate those as really empowering thoughts and feelings and behaviours, because that will move them towards, rather than away from, what it is they actually want in their lives. But I'm hoping, and you always say about this, that somebody somewhere is teaching our children that ability to recognise what they do bring and what strengths they do have, and that we are all unique in our own way and we all have something to contribute. As you said at the beginning, who's judge and jury over that? No, I believe no one should be a judge and jury of anyone. Look at yourself first. Don't be a judge of yourself, but work your way through that so you can seek support. You can share your thoughts about, oh, I don't know if I'm really good at that. And then somebody will be your advocate, your friend, your ally, your cheerleader, your whatever you want to call that individual, will then let you see it from the other side, which is the beauty of being as part of something, I think, rather than just keep it and put down, or you're putting yourself down, because it's tiring. And people don't want to be around negative people, really. They just get, oh, here we go again. And when somebody really wants some support or help, because they've gone over this a million times and it's the same rhetoric that they're saying, people don't then see when they really, really, really do need help. So if we can just nip that in the bud and move away from that imp and that imposter syndrome that people carry around with them like a lead balloon, and just let it go, it would be so much better.
Yeah.
Sounds
absolutely.
easy though. It sounds easy. It's not though, right?
Well, it sounds easy, but it's catching those kind of habits and patterns, isn't it? And you were just saying about, the workforce of tomorrow. So, the
Yeah.
kids that are currently in school now, and my understanding is that there's much more training for teachers around creating a growth mindset rather than a
Yeah.
fixed mindset, which I know we've talked lots about, but that growth mindset then of giving feedback on the input, not just always the output. And what
Nice.
that then gives is it gives that human the legs and the stability to give things a try, even if the successful outcome isn't guaranteed. And just something when that stuck out for me, I was lucky enough to watch Matthew Syed, that amazing tennis, table tennis champion.
Table tennis guy, yeah. He wrote the book Bounce, didn't he?
Yeah, he wrote the book Bounce, Black Box Thinking.
That's
He's
right.
just incredible. So I was lucky enough to, I was going to say I followed Matthew Syed, but I was in the side room with the small, he was on the front stage and I was in a back random room. Anyway, I shared the poster with him, but in the back room. But I managed to go in and catch a bit that he was talking about. And he was talking about the thing that happens with childhood prodigies. So children who are exceptionally gifted and talented in music or sports, and how important it is to get that practice mentality. Because what happens then when that childhood prodigy, a violinist, for example, goes through puberty, has all those teenage hormones, and the nerve just goes. And Yehudi Menuhin, who is a world famous violinist, he set up a school specifically for these budding musicians to be able to train them the resilience of learning how to practice. And practice isn't just what poor players do. Practice is what great players do. Otherwise, the imposter syndrome kicks in when that child kind of comes of age and thinks, oh my God, I don't think I can do it anymore. So it's that practice that even the world-class musicians have to do in order to get into that rigor and that permanence of it. So that it's more than just a fleeting feeling of, I think I'm all right. You're all right because you're doing the work and you're doing that practice and that rhythm that sits beneath it. So that always stuck out with me about actually there are some people out there who can pull amazing performances out of the bag, but for years and decades that takes the hard work, that takes the practice. So that's the bit that I think can then help shift from imposter to empower, which is if I'm feeling a little bit wobbly, what is it I need to do more practice on? Because the evidence to suggest that I am empowered might not be always in the outcome, because the outcome might be totally in the hands of the gods. But it's that you're going to do okay because you've done your prep and you've done your practice.
Yeah, that's so powerful to just even think that way, isn't it, Laura? To know that in order to be good, I have to put the hours in, I have to put the learning in, and I have to take the time out and practice self-care and compassion for self regularly in order that it becomes part of your ritual routine, but not to the point where it becomes complacent. It's that bit, when do I review? Okay, like we do that, like at the beginning of every year, this year is going to be amazing because, so we're already thinking about how do we reset, what's important, what have we achieved the year before, do we want to achieve the year moving forward. And then we know that we don't know everything. We're definitely not the expert in learning everything. So we know that we're going to have to put the work in and explore it and navigate our way through it so that we can then take that information then and apply it in our everyday. But I think to do that...
Just to interject, I think the magic you said there is we do that together.
Yes.
And with some other with our team.
Yeah.
I don't know if I do that year in, year out, sitting on my own at the kitchen table.
No.
I think it needs the courage that you then have individually. I think every now and then is being able to brainstorm and bounce off someone else and think, I think it might be a bit crazy an idea, but she's nodding along, so at least one person in the world thinks it could work.
Let's just do it on the whim.
Let's just give it a go. So I think the confidence from, and I don't know whether that's because I'm an extrovert character or not, I don't know, but I think another thing about imposter syndrome is if you've gone too inside your own head, you haven't had enough exposure to other people's skills and way of doing things, so you haven't had a chance to validate your gut feel. I think I'm right. Am I okay? That's what a lot of people are saying on our workshops at the moment, aren't they, Debs? I've been managing for years, but I don't know if I'm any good or not. Sit on a 3-hour workshop and at the end they go, actually, I think I'm all right, because you've had a chance to validate your gut feel and benchmark yourself against peers. And if you've got a real full-on life, you'd work in all sorts of different ways. You might be working unwatched, and that's where I think where that imp can kick in. Because if you haven't had chance just to not about judging, but it's just sort of checking, actually, is how I deal with things similar to other people? Pretty much so. Okay, cool, I can crack on, rather than overly worrying about whether I'm doing it right or wrong or not.
It goes back to that bit you were saying around, sometimes we just have to take a calculated risk in some things, right? And we have to step outside of our comfort zone and embrace those new challenges. So we pushing ourselves to take those calculated risks, obviously, that actually align then with your goals and your values, I think is really important to just give it a go, because that's how we learn, as you said, by giving it a go, and then we get the feedback or the tweaks or whatever, and then we can improve upon that, and then we hear how it's working, and and off we go, and before we know it, actually, this feels like I've done it all my life. So I think that purposeful practice, as Matthew Syed talks about, is something that we have to consciously do. And I always remember, I don't know if that is in his book or if it's something that I picked up separately, was, the footballers, like he always quite, I think it was his book actually, where he had David Beckham in it, saying, he practiced purposefully hours and hours and hours. That is in his book.
10,000 hours rule,
10,000 hours, that's right.
Yeah.
To be able to deliver that free kick in a way, so sorry for those who aren't football fans, but it's that he practiced that over and over, because the more he practiced, the better he got, the more confident he became, the more he wanted to do it. And that was out of, Matthew Syed's purposeful practice. And I think we can all do that. If, nothing's going to get handed, nothing gets handed to us on a plate, right?
Yeah.
We have to work.
So the skill was so ingrained, it didn't require a mindset almost to kind of deal with it, because it was just ingrained, because there'd been so much practice. It was kind of practice makes permanent and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So Debs, just to wrap up then, a couple of practical things that can help. And then I'm really interested in finding out some of the research that you've been doing about some of the things to watch out for, because that just might be useful for anyone thinking about themselves or someone within their team or their family. So just to sort of wrap up some of the key practical things we've been suggesting. So rather than viewing being out and about with others and comparison and competition with who knows most in the room, it's about collaboration. And rather than treating others as a judge and jury, it's your network. So for anyone that's got something in their working week where they're thinking, a bit worried about how I'm going to come across, treat it as a collaboration opportunity and a learning opportunity, rather than a competition where you're going to get judged as being right or not. And again, being less judgmental about whether you're skilled or not. It's not a yes, no, binary, black or white. It's actually a sliding scale. And even just you giving your concentrated attention to a certain subject will probably already make you a subject matter expert compared to someone who hasn't given their concentrated time. So you don't need to have a certificate for everything. Just you giving your attention actually means that you're carrying some knowledge that other people might then not. And then with reference to just kind of helping that imp in that moment, being able to bounce ideas off with other people, to validate your gut feel, having a check-in with someone saying, I've got this thing coming up, this is how I was going to handle it. It's remarkable sometimes just getting a little bit of mentoring from someone can really help just allay any kind of imp that might be building. So there are some tips in terms of sort of empowering ourselves. But I'm really interested, Debs, in the bit of research you've been doing about these 5 types. So I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, obviously we knew we were talking about this, and this is always a topic close to our heart. So I started to do some research and just came across this, I suppose, an expert on the subject around imposter syndrome and how it can be really harmful for us if we think that. And this is based on the work of Dr. Valerie Young. And what they've done is they've categorized it into some subgroups. And what she says is there are 5 based on some decades of research studying fraudulent feelings among high achievers. So that's what her work is based on. And she uncovered what she calls several competence types or internal rules that people who struggle with confidence attempt to follow. And she said that these can be overlooked at times, but they can be really helpful in identifying some of the unhelpful bad habits or patterns that we have that could be holding us back. And she identifies 5, which was fascinating. So the first one is the perfectionist. The second is the superwoman, superman. The third is the natural genius. And the fourth is the soloist. And the fifth is the expert. And it was fascinating to read some of the questions you could ask of yourself to see which category you might fall into. And the one that always sort of stuck with me is the perfectionist driver. And what she says, it's perfectionism. We found this in the work that we do. It's not perfect. Go hand in hand with imposter syndrome anyway. It's not good enough. I'm not putting it out there. So the perfectionism is a big one. And that's always one that we explore with people because they set excessively high goals for themselves that they may never achieve, but they won't move on because it's not perfect. And therefore, in this world, what is perfect? So some questions, she asked yourself these questions. And hopefully, if you're listening to this, you may not answer to these, but if you do, maybe you need to explore it a little bit more. So she said, ask yourself these questions. Number one, have you ever been accused of being a micromanager? So that's the first question to ask of yourself, so you won't let go. So do you have great difficulty delegating? Even when you're able to do so, do you feel frustrated and disappointed in the results that you're getting back? When you miss the insanely high mark on something, do you accuse yourself of not being cut out for that job, or you ruminate on it for days because you weren't good enough? And do you feel like your work must be 100% perfect 100% of the time? And she said that type of imposter syndrome, that is rarely satisfying because people believe they could have done it even better. And, that's it's not healthy, it's not productive. But a lot of people present with that as being one of the key ones when they talk about, oh, I'm not good enough, I won't meet the match, and all of those things we do. So, her advice is to learn to take mistakes in your stride, which is what we were saying, right, Laura? To embrace the failure. That's where we learn the most sometimes. Embrace it and learn from it, not beat yourself up because of it, but just go, okay, what's the opportunity this is giving me? And I know we talked about this on our optimistic mindset one. Yes, might have failed at that, but there was an opportunity there. What's my lesson? How do I not do that again? And therefore think about it.
What a sliding scale, a slippery slope that is between having high standards, taking pride in your work, wanting to deliver to enable amazing outcomes. And some of the organisations we work with are in life or death situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So at what point is there that slippery slope from passion about getting things done right and safely and well, and it's slipping into a confidence knocking imposter syndrome with that perfection bit that's kind of nagging away. So that's the knack almost, isn't it, of just catching yourself before something that is actually a positive motivator then starts to be an imp that actually is disempowering you.
And we always say about that, don't we, Laura, that it can be an overplayed strength, which then becomes your weakness, because then that becomes your bit of a nemesis, really. And I think some of the signs to watch out for is, again, listening to the self-talk that's going on. Do you feel super tired? So are you potentially leading into not sleeping well? So all of those physical signs that present themselves when we are working to 100%, we cannot sustain that level anyway. We can maybe do it in short bursts, but not forever. So burnout is a big thing. Criticizing your achievements rather than celebrating your achievements is another. So if you're saying, oh yeah, but that was okay, so if you put a but in, then you're just going to negate that good feeling beforehand. So again, I think, making sure you are aware of what you do bring, again, cultivating that level of self-confidence and self-belief that actually that's good enough. But if it's ingrained within us, it's really hard to unlearn some of that behavior because it normally comes from somewhere. But I think being able to recognize it, and there are physiological signs that tell us that we are working too hard to be perfect in everything, that our brains just shut us down. So therefore, we don't think straight. And therefore, we beat ourselves up because we're not thinking straight. And I would never have made that mistake before, but we don't connect the fact that, I'm driving for perfection, whereas actually done is good enough, which I think Brené Brown talks about in one of her books. So, but it's recognizing it on having people around you that may also recognize it in you, so questioning it for you. So you go, oh yeah, maybe it was okay. we had a laugh on the workshop today I was running, because there was somebody from the finance team in there, and they were a perfectionist. And I said, well, I suppose in some elements of your work, you might have to be perfect when it comes to paying people's salaries by the, you can't really just go, oh, that's enough, that'd do. So I don't think people would appreciate, yeah, that was enough. So again, we were talking about, in that moment, it does mean you have to be perfect. It doesn't mean the rest of it has to be perfect either. How you got there could be a myriad of different ways you did it. The end result might have to, I'll pay the person the right amount of money. That has to be perfect, right? You can't just give or take a penny or two. So it was really interesting to then break it down into moments of perfection rather than the whole thing 100% perfect, 100% in everything all of the time. And there are moments where it requires perfectionism, but not to live our lives that way.
Yeah, in such a volatile, uncertain, chaotic, ambiguous world.
Oh my God, completely, Law.
You're trying to control nature, and there'll be laws and things that are happening that are way out of our control. And what does that mean, in terms of how we handle that the best? I really hope the children that are currently in school right now, Debs, enter into a world of work where there is less of this angst and this worry and this and this concern. So I think always at the back of our minds, I know both of us are really motivated about how do we work well, not only for ourselves right now, but also to be decent role models for people that are going to be entering into the world of work, because I'm not sure people can work any harder, longer, faster, with more energy. I think there are a lot of people that are already feeling a little bit like the energy is starting to decrease a little bit. So let's work well, not only for ourselves now, but also for the children that are going to enter into our workplace, because we're their role models, aren't they?
Yeah, we're
wandering around going, I don't really know what I'm doing. But
I'm burnt out.
But that would probably be my share the secret, Debs, which is if this has got you thinking about, actually maybe I'm feeling a little bit wobbly at the moment, share the secret, literally reveal how you're feeling to someone else who's a trusted ally, to say, oh, can I just have a bit of a chat, 'cause I'm feeling a bit wobbly about this. And I guarantee you the other person, if they are a typical human, will go, yeah, me too. And then you'll then have that alliance of, okay, it's not just me, I'm cool. And then the imp can then just back off, and then you feel a bit more empowered and a bit more able to step through what is already a bit of a blurred line about being skilled or not. It's in the eye of the beholder. And if you look like you're empowered and you're giving it your best, then people tend to take you at face value.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that probably is my call to action, is that take that pause moment and recognize what you are doing and what you are achieving, and give yourself that, metaphorical pat on the back to go, oh, I'm okay, really. And there are many different ways to do that, whether some people I know will put a little star on a calendar, only they know what it means. Others will write in their gratitude journal. People will just keep their smile files. There are so many ways that we can just acknowledge what we are doing, and that we are all work in progress. We're always going to be learning, and to never not lose that ability to be curious. I think that would be my call to action. Just be curious about what's going on, explore it, and then just think about that pause that enables you to process it in the way that's going to be healthy for you and only you.
Love it, Debs. Love it, love it, love it. So this has been the fifth and final our Your Mind Matters, so confidence and self-belief focus that we've had this month. Has been an absolute joy. We've had guests, we've looked at imposter syndrome, that imp inside, we've looked at optimism, we've looked at looking after ourselves in different perspectives. It's been an absolute joy. It's such a big topic.
It is.
And we're really hoping that you've been able to take some food for thought. And also, if you're thinking it and you can hear us recounting stories and examples, it's not just you. There are many people that are finding these kind of hot topics at the moment. So I'm really looking forward, as ever, Debs, to a new focus. So all will be revealed when we back online for our next episode. In the meantime, Debs, have a glorious imp-free week.
You too, Law.
And remember, feeling wobbly is a sign that you're passionate about making it work. So it's a badge of honour now, this imp, rather than something to be ashamed of.
Absolutely. I love that, Law. Yeah, you look after your imp too, and just remember what you are doing, not what you're not doing, right?
Oh, thank you, Debs.
Anytime.
Have a fab week.
You too. Love you. Bye.